It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought us to the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained by rational principles the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the powerful Kingdom of England and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and he explained it in ways that were understandable to the people, to all of the people. A great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we are able to reason, we're able to talk to each other, we're able to listen to each other, and we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it. Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani with Rudy Giuliani's Common Sense, and today we are at the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C., which has become more or less the center of the Republican National Convention. And we have a very exciting guest. Kim Klacik, I'm sure you've seen her by now. She gave an incredible speech the other night at the Republican Convention, and I think you've seen her ad. It's gone viral, where she's walking through the streets of Baltimore and explaining what hasn't been done and what should be done. And in just about, just a few minutes, she brings a national issue to the forefront that just has to be addressed and hasn't been in years. And she does it with a great deal of style and a great deal of impact. And her speech, boy, fabulous. So I think you're going to be very interested in hearing from her. Kim, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for running.
Thank you.
You now know how hard it is to run.
Yes, absolutely.
And what a great sacrifice you're making. And
yes.
we appreciate it.
Thank you.
There could be a lot of other things you could be doing with your talent.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So tell us a little bit about how, first of all, you're running in Maryland's 7th District.
Yes.
And people will know it because it was former Congressman Elijah Cummings' district.
Yes, so the late Congressman Cummings held the seat for, I believe it was a little over 30 years. Prior to that, it was my now opponent, Kwesi Nkrumah, got in 1987. The interesting part is...
he hasn't retired since then?
Nope. He served 5 terms. He quit, went over to head the NAACP, and then Cummings stepped in and took over. And I thought it was interesting because he said he was running because of the city being infested with crime. But we still have the same thing going on today, and here we are 30 years later.
And where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Accokeek, Maryland. It's not too far from the Trump Hotel.
Right.
So on Indian Head Highway, and it wasn't the city life. It wasn't completely rural, more suburban. But had a pretty decent upbringing, great parents. I went off to high school. I then went to Bowie State University. Unfortunately, I left after a year. When I was 15, I developed alopecia, where I lost all my hair. And I think it traumatized me in a way where I was at first hurt, and then I got really tough. And I just kept going.
Your hair is, if I may say so, I'm not sure this is inappropriate nowadays, but your hair is beautiful, and you're beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. So, but
what happened? Did you got cured? And
no, it's still somewhat like that, and it's always been a struggle my entire life. But I think that made me who I am today.
It doesn't show in your personality. You have a very naturally friendly personality.
Yeah,
the ad was electric. I have to tell you. I mean, I've seen I don't know how many. I've been in probably 1,000 political ads, and I've probably seen 5,000. Mm-hmm. And maybe there are 10 that had that immediate impact like that one. So
thank you.
Congratulations to the person who did it also.
Yeah.
But you need somebody with a natural talent and honesty. We see so many ads that are pre-programmed. There was such honesty that came from it, and from your speech the other night.
Thank you.
So what's driving you, Kim? there's definitely something very positive driving you.
Absolutely.
What is it?
So I've been, for the past 8 years, helping out with my nonprofit, Workforce Development, Potential Me. And for 8 years, I've been helping women get employed. That's a major issue in Baltimore City. We don't have the career opportunities. Not only is our education poor, but if you got out of a high school, you pretty much didn't end up anywhere. A lot of kids don't go off to college and there's nowhere to work. So where do they go? But, maybe on the streets or, getting in trouble or a job that isn't paying really the bills. And so, for me to watch children grow up in this situation, we have a problem with drug addicts in our area. There's a lot of people struggling with addiction. In West Baltimore, I think we have 6 methadone clinics in this tiny area, over 17,000 vacant homes. It is a war zone. You would think you were in another country. And I know a lot of people say, well, you didn't grow up here, you're not from Baltimore, but for me, it's kind of like, I don't think you have to be from there to understand that
How far did you live from Baltimore?
30 minutes.
So you were
30,
like
40 minutes,
somebody who lives in Nassau County or Westchester County, or somebody who lives in Queens and goes into Manhattan. That's a half hour.
Right.
So you're part of the metropolitan area.
Exactly. Still from Maryland.
And you know its history.
Yes.
I mean, it's had better times.
Much better times. And, it could be so much better. I understand manufacturing, when we lost a lot of those jobs and they went overseas, obviously,
sure,
it hurt Baltimore a lot. But, our leaders never stepped up and got with the times, basically. They just let it, basically deteriorate. And so now our jewel of the city is now in receivership. We have no tourist attractions. We're doing with COVID right now, so we have no one going to the baseball games. We'll probably have no one going to the football games. And so we just have so much going on.
I'm very disappointed, I got to tell you, just to digress from the Oriole fans. I'm a Yankee fan, so we have a great history with the Orioles.
Yeah.
And they were one of the franchises that could, when you were good or bad, you'd always fill the stadium, like the Red Sox and the Yankees. And last couple of years, it's terrible. There are more Yankee fans there. I don't like that. I mean, even if I don't like it. There's something, so what that tells me as a former mayor, there's something missing in the morale of the city too.
Right.
People have given up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would want to make you cry if people have given up. And you give us such hope. So let's give people some statistics.
Okay.
Baltimore, I just checked to be absolutely sure, is number 2 for homicide.
Yes.
Right behind St. Louis, even with all the things going on in Chicago and New York, number 2 for homicide.
Yeah.
Number 1 for robbery. Mm-hmm. So it's a crime zone.
Absolutely.
And it's a poverty zone, one of the poorest cities.
20%.
And it's been that way for a very, very long time. And we should add, it's been governed by Democrats for 53 straight years.
Yes, and I would like to add another point, if I could, because a lot of people talk about how it's racism that contributed to this. But for the past 20 years, it's been nothing but under Black leadership. So we don't have a racism problem. We have a classism problem. We have a corruption problem, but it's not racism in Baltimore.
It'd be hard. The city's about 63% Black?
I believe it is, 63, 64, yeah.
So there aren't too many people around to be racist.
Yeah.
I mean, no, when the city's that large a population, obviously, they've got to take responsibility for itself. So one of the reasons I was very drawn to you the minute I saw your ad, and I've been thinking about Baltimore for a long time, was I was very struck when the Freddie Gray riots took place that Congressman Cummings, who hardly knew at that time, held a big press conference in front of his district with all these people around and started very eloquently, basically yelling and screaming that nobody had done anything about Baltimore for 50 years. Anything about this district in 50 years. And I thought for a moment, maybe he didn't represent that district. So maybe he was talking about somebody else's district. And then when I realized he was representing his district, I said, what a separation of reality.
Yeah.
Doesn't he realize the first question is, what have you done?
Right.
But of course, the crooked press never asked him that question.
Never.
So that's the district you're running in.
Yes, it is.
And you're running against the man who had it before because they think they own it.
Correct.
And now he can just take it back like he's a feudal lord.
Exactly.
And how did he deal with it when he was a member of Congress?
So our crime and violence numbers, everything had gotten worse. We lost a lot of jobs. I won't say that was particularly his fault. Like I said, we used to be very, manufacturing. We had a lot coming in the ports. I get that part of it. But he didn't do anything to replenish those jobs, right? But he got in 1987. the crime got so out of control, he actually quit. He just left Congress and went to go work as the president of the NAACP. He then recruited Congressman Cummings to come in and take his spot. And so that's how it's been since 1987.
It's time to take a short break. How bad is it? Your back, knee, or neck pain? My knee pain was awful. I probably tried the same things you're trying to manage your pain. Topical ointments, pain relievers, fish oil, but nothing worked. Then I tried Omega XL. And here's why. The underlying cause of painful, achy joints and muscles is inflammation. The key is to knock down inflammation before it causes permanent damage. Backed by 35 years of research, that's exactly what Omega XL does. Nothing comes close to doing what Omega XL does. There's nothing like it. If you're suffering with painful, achy joints and muscles, stop wasting money and switch to Omega XL. Order Omega XL now and get a second bottle free. Visit omegaxl.com/Rudy. That's omegaxl.com/Rudy or call 1-800-844-4888. 800-844-4888. Now it's time to go back to our interview with Kimberly. So now he's running again to come back and do what he wasn't able to do before.
Yeah, so the city
which is kind
actually,
of unrealistic, and he's a lot older now.
Yes, and the city only got worse.
Hardly gives the city hope of bright new leadership.
Yeah.
It's the same old, it's a rethread.
Yeah.
Of a prior mistake.
I asked the media, because, of course, they're all in his corner. Like you said, it's very biased. But I asked, can you point to one accomplishment of his? If you can, I will say, okay, I'll just walk away and smile. Not one person has been able to say that he has accomplished anything. Even at the NAACP, he was kicked out for mismanagement of funds and apparently a sexual harassment charge where he had to pay someone $100K to basically, not disclose further.
And the Me Too movement doesn't care about this.
They're on board with him. It's the most bizarre situation. So the Me Too movement occurs when it's convenient.
Because when it's a Republican or a Democrat they don't like.
Exactly.
So now let's talk about you.
Yes.
So obviously you're being involved in a not-for-profit, getting jobs for women. That has to mean you got a really good sense of the economy there, what's going on there.
Yeah.
Probably drove you to doing this because you felt you could really help.
Right.
But what are the main things you want to accomplish?
So a big one, as I said, career opportunities. We have the second largest port in Baltimore in the entire country.
You do. You've got a great port.
Yes, we do. Connecticut has a great port, and they know exactly how to manage it.
New York used to have a great port, but the mafia ruined it. But that's a different story.
Yeah. So we have to be able to manage it. I look at Connecticut's port because it's similar in size. And they're bringing in the submarine ships, and they've got all these jobs going just from the submarines. They're now doing the wind energy right off the port.
I'm so jealous. That's what New York used to be. But
yeah.
Never again.
But we can do that in Baltimore.
No, I know you can. I love your port.
We can.
Now, there was a time, we were talking about it before. There was a time, and I might have a little trouble placing it. There was a time when, in that 50-year period of Democratic dominance, there was a time where there was hope for Baltimore. And I kind of related to when Camden Yards was built and when Mayor Schaefer was the mayor, who was kind of almost like a model for other mayors. And I studied what he did. I thought he was a good mayor. And then after that, it seemed to just drop off the cliff.
Right. Yeah.
And then it became, the Baltimore of Wired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I always get backlash saying, how dare you air our dirty laundry, so to say, when I shot the videos of the trash. And I'm like, The Wire had so many seasons that showed everybody exactly how Baltimore was through and through.
Okay, let me give you some encouragement. I had this problem when I dealt with the mafia and Italian Americans. Some of them got very angry at me. And my answer to it was, if you don't air your problems, you don't solve them.
Right.
Because you know what's the opposite of not airing them? It's covering them up.
Right.
And there's always some corruption involved in covering them up.
Yeah.
And in the case of Cummings, I'm not going to make an accusation, but I understand that his wife made a great deal of money.
Yes. Yeah. So she had
not
a
unusual.
nonprofit. Yeah.
And Kwame have a similar situation? Did he make a lot of money?
Yes, he did make a lot of money. So that's why it was interesting.
He made a lot of money as a congressman and the head of the NAACP.
Yes.
Are those entrepreneurial jobs?
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what's interesting? He was for term limits, and he had 6 terms for members of Congress, and he already served 5. So when I got a chance to be in a forum with him during the special election, I said, "But sir, isn't your time up by your own standards?" And he got so angry. He stood up and said,
They just want to say, well, I'm a liar?
I was like, okay, so
You
that's
think I
his
really
button.
meant it when I said it? I'm a
Right?
politician, dear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I called him out on it. He wasn't too happy about that. So, but you know, I just think right now we've got technology's changing. We've got so many things going on that's changing. I see on the left, they're you know, supporting younger, fresh faces coming in. I think we can do that on the right.
Now, how did you have the courage to become a Republican?
Yeah, so, oh, you know why? So when like I said, losing my hair, I mean, there was just, after that, there's nothing you could say or do to me to hurt me. You know what I mean? And so people call me all kinds of names. I get it all the time.
Because you're a Republican.
Yeah, and I just think, well, if that's the best you got, you got to come stronger than that, you know? So I think, you know, I had brothers, you know, I just grew up tough. You know, my dad was tough. And
you made that decision to be a Republican before you thought about, was it you first became a Republican and then thought about office, or?
Yeah, so I became a Republican in 2009. I voted for President Obama in 2008 in hopes that he would basically promote the family structure within the Black community. This is a man, by all appearances, was a great dad, a great husband, kids, everyone very educated. Michelle Obama,
No question.
very educated. But he did not do that. He went the other way and played victim. You know, we saw in the DNC convention, even Michelle Obama was talking about how she was still a victim as a Black woman in America from her mansion in Martha's Vineyard.
She could be one of the most famous women in the world.
Yeah.
Wouldn't say they're one of the wealthiest people in the world, but they're very wealthy now.
Yeah.
Multi-millionaires.
Yes.
They travel in private planes. Their kids went to private school.
Right. They have a
What do
lovely
they have to complain
mansion
about? I
in
mean,
Martha's Vineyard. I don't know, but apparently she's a victim, is what she tells us.
So let's go to issues.
Yeah.
You're a big proponent of
School
choice.
Yes.
And so are roughly 60% of the African American community.
Yes.
However, they elect people who are vehement opponents of school choice
Right.
because they are owned and operated by the teachers union.
Absolutely.
Am I correct?
Absolutely.
I'm not exaggerating that, right?
No.
I mean, I'm one of the long-term opponents of the teachers union.
Okay.
I'm one of the long-term proponents of vouchers.
Yes.
You're not supposed to say vouchers because vouchers are very bad.
Right.
So it makes sense that given the condition of the public education system, which in Baltimore is horrendous, parents should have a choice of what school their child goes to.
Yeah.
Because at least enough of them will take interest in it that it creates some momentum for change.
Yes. And you're right. They will be further engaged in their child's education. That's another problem. You know, parents sometimes allow the public school system to kind of raise their children. But I think, you know, we should ask parents to be more involved in the process, the education process. Like, this is what's the difference, I think, in private schools. People say, well, why do kids at private schools seem to be so much better? And there's a little bit more rules, but parents are actively involved and the schools make them. You know, every other day there's like a bull roast, there's a PTA, there's this, there's that, you know, and that's important in, I think, you know, a child's education.
So when you talk to constituents now, let's go to politicians, do they understand that? Do they understand the value that would exist if they had choice either with regard to private schools, public schools, or?
Yes, so I had to figure out a way to explain it, right? So I figured out if you explain it as, you know, the school that your child goes to now doesn't have a basketball team, doesn't have a track team, doesn't have a swim team, and you're telling me that your kid would love to try to go into some of these sports and maybe one day get a scholarship. Just think if you could send your child to a school that has a track team, has a basketball team, has a swim team, and you could take advantage of those opportunities.
Of course.
And then they say, oh, wow, I think I do like school choice.
Right.
And so that's how I've been explaining it, just to let them know there are better options, and I want you to make sure you and your child have access to those options.
There's a good time to take a short break, and we'll be right back. I couldn't believe we were evicted from our home that we didn't even sell. Those are the words of a homeowner, Deborah, when she learned she was the victim of home title fraud. It's a devastating crime that can cost you your home and title fraud is not covered by insurance or common identity theft services. The only folks to trust that I know of to protect your home's title is Home Title Lock. Cyber thieves have discovered the titles to our homes are kept online. They forge your name on your deed stating you sold your home, and they refile as the new owner. In Deborah's case, she didn't even know she was a victim until the eviction notice arrived in her mail. Home Title Lock protects you and your home by putting a virtual barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect tampering, they mobilize to shut it down. Go online to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim and don't know it. Then use code RUDY, that's me, and sign up for 30 free days of protection. That's code RUDY at HometitleLock.com. Welcome back to our interview with Kim Klacik. So that's one of your prime issues. Another one of your issues, obviously, from your speeches that I've heard and your ads, are the conditions of Baltimore.
Gosh, yes.
The safety,
Yeah.
the physical condition, the rebuilding of it.
Yeah.
So how do we reestablish, how would you go about moving toward reestablishing safety and getting it out of this category of being number 2 for homicide and number 1 for is it robbery? I guess robbery. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we're probably pretty high up there as far as carjackings too.
Oh wow, absolutely.
Oh my gosh,
very high. It's one of the most dangerous cities in America, and it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
This is not necessary. There's almost like a fatal acceptance of it. New York City went to 1,000 murders a year in 1968. Between 1968 and 1994, it never had a year when it was below 1,500, sometimes over 2,000. And we changed it in 2 years. Now it has 300 murders a year. 2,400 to 300. Same city.
That's amazing.
Just much more sensible policies of policing, handling the courts,
right,
and the correction system.
Yep, that's what it's all about. And it's tough. I don't know if you know anything about our state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, but she's the one that charged the police officers in the death of Freddie Gray. And I guess to keep her record clean and in the 90th percentile, she doesn't actually go after some of these violent criminals the way that I think she probably could. So you'll hear about crime on the streets from a suspect that is a 11-time repeat offender. And it's just like, well, how in the world is this guy still on the streets?
Yeah, and there's also a failure to empathize with the victims. Mm-hmm. It's as if the only people that are entitled to rights are the criminals.
Right.
And meanwhile, 11-time person being let out, it's got to be a whole trail of victims.
Yes.
People's lives were ruined by this person.
Yeah.
If it's rape, people have been raped. If it's robbery, if it's murder,
yes,
beatings. I mean, there's just a whole hundreds, if not thousands, of victims.
Yeah.
And nobody on the Democrat side cares about them.
No.
They don't care. It's like as if they don't exist.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me because I'll always get this blowback. They say, you support Trump. All these people died during the coronavirus pandemic. And I say, do you know how many people died in these inner cities, even just this past year,
right,
from gun violence or from people just because we don't prosecute these criminals and treat them like criminals? So, I'm a big proponent for law and order. And, however I can back the police, that's what I'm going to do. On my, obviously on a federal level, you got to be able to work with the local level. So.
No, but a single member of Congress with an idea that's infectious can enlighten a whole city. Mm-hmm. Don't feel like, if you got elected, you would bring a whole new feeling to Baltimore. And there'd be a lot more people elected after you once that happened. You just need one opening. It can happen with a congressional election, it can happen with a Senate election, it can happen with a mayor's election. In fact, when I first saw your ad, I thought you were running for mayor. You seem to know so much about the city. No, you seem to know so much about the city.
Yeah.
I said, well, maybe you will be mayor someday. Ed Koch was one of my predecessors, was a member of Congress. Mm-hmm. He was a pretty good mayor.
Yeah.
But the reality is that you seem to really love the city. You have.
I do. I definitely love the city. And like I said, I've been there for so many years just trying to help out. And when you see that there's just the most simple fixes can, help families within 2 or 3 years. It's like, why not give it a shot?
Like what? Give us an example.
Well, school choice, and then of course the careers. So when I started my nonprofit, I actually started it out to help young women go to prom. So these are the girls that had good grades, they were going off to college or work, and they couldn't afford the prom experience. And I went to this one send-off party, and the mom was like, I wish I could offer you something to eat, but I don't have anything. Her electricity wasn't working at the time, you know, and so she said, I would go to work if I could just figure out how to get a job. And I said, bingo, I need to change my whole mission statement. If I can get their mothers employed, they could go to prom and everything else. And so that's when I switched it to workforce development instead of just helping these young ladies go to prom.
That's a wonderful story, Kim. And what would the first thing be that you want to focus on when you get elected?
So not that I hate the Democrats, but I would love to understand where some of this federal money went. And I would love to understand where it was supposed to go.
I can give you some hints.
Yeah, so.
I did that work for 17 years. I can give you some hints.
Yeah, that
One of the ways I
one.
became mayor of New York City is I put in jail so many of the people that worked for the prior mayor.
Okay.
And, oh, come on.
Well, our mayor was just,
Baltimore is cesspool.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, you know, our mayor was just indicted. She's now serving time for pay to play, Catherine Pugh. And so we have our interim mayor. He's not, you know, being reelected. Someone else is. Right. And so now he's like what do they call it? A lame duck mayor.
Right.
So he's just sitting there.
Right.
So nothing's getting done.
So you would like to follow the trail of the federal money and
yes.
what happened to the money that was given. And for example, when the Freddie Gray situation took place, there was tremendous rioting.
Yes.
I remember. And so a lot of money was given to try to fix that, right?
Correct.
Millions
of dollars.
Has it been fixed?
Nothing. It's 2020. That happened in 2015. Haven't seen a single change.
And we're gonna put some footage on to show.
Oh yeah.
To show that you've taken.
Yes. Yep.
And that's it. Would that be in your district?
Yes. This whole area is in my district, and you know, somebody needs to be held accountable for just what's been going on there for 30 years.
Well, I mean, that would be one reason alone to elect you, to get an independent person. Mm-hmm. Who isn't tied to the old political nonsense.
No fear, no favor.
Just to make a deal with the Trump administration to get the money and be accountable for it.
Yeah.
It's simple to be accountable for it. You just get an accountant.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
You prove what it was used for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could turn that around.
Yep.
In a very short period of time.
Yeah, and I have to say to your audience as well, so back in January, I took some community leaders down to the White House to meet with an advisor to President Trump. You might know Jaron Smith.
Sure do.
And we were talking about how the Opportunity Zone map left out these neighborhoods in that Penn North corridor where the riots were. So we've been talking to him about what we can do more with the opportunity zones through Trump's administration. So.
Well, I'm sure you will. Now, what do people have to do to get you elected? They got to send you money, right?
Oh yes, we always need
money. So how
money,
do we do? We'll put that up on the screen, but tell them also how to do it.
You can go to kimkforcongress.com and you'll see our PayPal link, WinRed, Anadot. You can pay however you like. Our PO box if you don't trust the internet, I get it. And you can also sign up to volunteer on the website as well. You know, so we're knocking doors. We're going to face to face. We have people canvassing 5 days a week. We have people registering voters 2 days a week. And this district has 500,000 people in it. You know, so there's a lot of people to hit. And we have Baltimore County and Howard County. There's a lot of land.
Well, if you're interested, like I am, in seeing the Republican Party have really dynamic, young, new voices, very intelligent, very energetic, the right ideas. Kim is a natural. I mean, I'll support her. I think everyone else should support her.
Thank you.
And can I just conclude by asking you, so you're running on the Republican ticket, and Donald Trump is constantly attacked by every other word out of their mouth is racist, 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 racist. Now, it's personally offensive to me because I've known the man for 40 years. And when you know a man 40 years and you see that a significant number of his friends are African American, this isn't like, oh, my best friend is, nonsense. It's for real.
Yeah.
And you see a man who's comfortable with anybody.
Yeah.
And you know he doesn't have that kind of mentality. It doesn't look at the world that way.
Yeah.
I can't even think of what it is that they base it on, but they just keep saying it. Do people in the community understand how much, he's done for the African American community? So much more than prior presidents in terms of higher wages, lower unemployment,
HBCU
greater
funding,
employment, funding for the colleges,
prison reform, the First Step Act. We have a lot of people coming.
Prison reform of a prison bill that was screwed up by Joe Biden.
Yes.
Joe Biden wrote it.
Which was co-sponsored by my opponent, Kwesi Nkrumah.
So Trump had to straighten out. Trump had to straighten out their problem.
Yes.
They couldn't straighten it out. He and Obama, Biden and Obama couldn't straighten out the problem they caused. Basically the problem is they put drug users in the same category as drug sellers.
Yeah.
I mean, the vice presidential candidate on the state level put 1,500 people in prison who merely smoked a marijuana cigarette.
Yes.
I prosecuted for 17 years. I never prosecuted a single marijuana cigarette case. I'd be embarrassed to do it.
Right.
And the only people who do it are cheap, phony statistic creators, not real prosecutors.
Yeah.
They're easy to do. You got all the people smoking, arrest them, you got nice statistics.
Yeah.
Terrible.
It is.
So do the people appreciate that? Do they understand it? Is it getting through?
So we're chipping away at that message. I think when you listen to the media and certain networks, I think you believe what they're saying. Yeah. And so, a lot of people don't do their due diligence, which is normal.
Yeah, they have other things to do in life, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why we're knocking door to door to make sure everybody gets that message.
They're not afraid with COVID to open the door. They don't go, oh my God.
Well, when you're in a neighborhood where you could get shot by a stray bullet any time of the day, COVID is not on your mind.
COVID is not exactly. You mean, contrary to Dr. Fauci, COVID is not the only thing that can kill you.
Right, exactly.
There are things that can kill you and maybe even kill you at a much higher rate.
Exactly.
Well, Kim, you are a breath of fresh air.
Thank you.
In a political environment that is about as depressing as it can get. And it's wonderful to see that we're the ones that have the really sensible, new, young, attractive, articulate candidates who make sense.
Yeah.
And I really wish you well. Anything I can do to help you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that was a really interesting interview, wasn't it? I hope you're as excited as I am about her candidacy. Kim Klacik is going to go places. And one of the places she's going to go, if you help, is to United States Congress to represent a district that is sorely in need of help. So you take down that information and you contribute money to her because she's going to need it. It's the only way to get the message out against the prejudiced environment in which she exists, where they attack her because she's a Republican, yet she's coming there with the solutions, and they're clearly part of the problem. In fact, they're bringing part of the problem back. So this is an important election. Thank you very much, and we'll see you very, very soon.